Welcome, BBCers, to episode number 128 of the number one solo queue motivational podcast coming at you about League of Legends. This is a League of Legends podcast. We talk about League of Legends here. We love League of Legends here. It's December time, Curtis. December time. And what's the most exciting thing that everyone looks forward to every December? Spotify Wrapped.
Okay.
People have been tweeting at us. People have been tweeting at us. People have been talking about it. How much did you listen to the Broken by Concept podcast if you're a Spotify listener, which is a little bit... I'm going to tell people to comment in the YouTube comments about listening to it on Spotify. I had a record, Curtis, which is really cool. 9,000 minutes from one of my Soul 2 members, Corey, which meant, someone did the calculations, that meant there's more minutes than total episodes. But he's rewatched them.
Oh my goodness.
So he's listened to them. So let us know how many minutes. The average people usually around 3,000 minutes, whatever, because it has it in minutes. But, you know, the whole rap thing's really cool, the Spotify thing. And everyone is really judgmental on people's top songs and stuff like that. I haven't done mine, but anyway, that's the exciting part of December.
Okay. More exciting than Christmas.
More exciting than Christmas, the Spotify Wrapped. All right, Curtis, I have a couple of rules to talk about today, and I want to get your thoughts on them. These are me, rules people insult you, linking me them, or I find these or whatever. These are some interesting ones here, okay Curtis? The first rule. So this is called the 85% rule, and I thought this was really interesting because this is my low intensity and high intensity accounts.
So where are these rules coming from?
So this one was a thread on Twitter.
Okay.
And this got, it got a lot of likes, got 50,000 likes. Okay. I was loving this one. And this is about athletes. So I'll read it out and then we can discuss it because it's really interesting, just the psychology around this. And, we can apply this, these are just some rules to experiment with that we can apply maybe in our season, next season. When an athlete is told to run at 85%, they run faster than if they're told to run at 100%. It's called the 85% rule, and here's why it works. Carl Lewis was a 9-time Olympic gold medalist who was known as a master finisher, but a slow starter. He began races second to last, but usually ended up finishing first. It became known that he wasn't performing at full throttle. He was going at 85% the whole time. Why 85%, you ask? When you have your best performances, it's never when you're trying your hardest. Instead, the task usually feels easy and effortless. Going at 85% is a mindset about relaxation and performing at a high level while being in flow. It's about pacing, form, and finishing. At 85%, you're not striving or straining by operating at the very limit of your ability. You have room to think, focus, and adapt. Applying the 85% rule helps you balance intensity while being focused and relaxed. That's it. So I think that ties into some things we've been exploring over the last couple of months on this podcast. The Effort Mousley, Kenny Werner. I'm going to start off with a analogy or an anecdote. Is it anecdote? Anecdote. Is that how do you say it?
Is it something that you've done?
I've experienced.
Yeah, an anecdote. Yeah.
People join our coaching programs, right? Mm-hmm. And then suddenly their mindset is that, okay, before I wasn't really trying at all. Now I'm getting coaching from Nathan or Curtis, and now I'm going 100%, right? That I feel like that crumbles for a lot of people. And especially when, how we see periods of the season, especially it's like, okay, I'm going to go 100% now. It's the end of season rush. I got to get my end of season rank. But, going into the story of Carl Lewis, and I think this really encapsulates the Broken by Concept mantra, is the process. You chip away at it for a long period of time, and 85% using this rule ends up being we winning the race at the end of it. And this is, to say like, the way people view League of Legends a lot, it's like, now I'm going to play ranks and then I'm going to take 3 months off. It's the mindset of you're not feeling rushed. It goes here when it talks about how, you have your best performances when you're, when you feel more free flow, you have more time to room to think, focus, and adapt. And I think this is really interesting in terms of my journey this year because the interesting thing is that, so I was meant to be try-harding at the beginning of the season. My high-intensity account was my Nathan Mott account, and my low-intensity account was my Nathan Mott 2 account. But then it so happened that my low-intensity account got higher ELO. That was my account that finished Challenger this season, then my Nathan Mott account, and that's when I sort of switched them around after that. So those are some anecdotes. What do you think about this, Curtis?
Yeah, I'll be honest. For me personally, I get it. Like I get it I get where it's coming from
At a philosophical level.
Yeah, like at a theoretical level, I get it. For me personally, I don't know how practical that is for me. The way I interpret that entire thing is
does 85% to you. So what do you? Does that mean like you're not trying? Like what does that mean? Because 85% still is pretty high.
I don't really know what that means.
You don't know what that means.
Like I don't know. For me personally, it's either.
It's like a mindset. That's the way I view it.
The way I interpret that entire thing is playing without expectation.
Yep.
That's really what, in my opinion, what it is. Like you're going out there, you're trying, but when you're at quote unquote 100%, the way I interpret it is that you're expecting things. You're expecting certain results because you're giving it all. You're giving it your all. But I feel like. The way I interpret it is you should be trying, your quote unquote best, but not expecting particular things. It's kind of still going with the flow. I feel like for me, when I play my best League of Legends, I'm trying like my hardest, but I just don't really, I'm not overemphasizing this one game. It's like, this is just one game and I'm going to play.
Grand scheme of the whole year.
Yeah.
One of the quotes that we love here is that this game is the most important game, but the least important game of your year.
That resonates with me more than the 85% for me personally. But this is a great tool, I think, for people to. It might click with some people, right? For me personally, it doesn't. But I see where it's coming from. So yeah, TLDR, I think the way I interpret that is you're lowering your expectations because when you're at 100%. According to him, you're probably nervous and like, oh my God, if I'm giving my all, it has to work. Like there's no room there's no room for me to do any better than this. Which can cause, I guess overthinking and not being in that free flow state. But I think you can do both. Like maybe I'm just delusional, maybe I'm just hopeful, but for me personally, I think you can do both. I think it's possible.
Maybe it's not 85%, but the story we're all told, the tortoise and the hare, the fox or whatever it is, the hare that sprints and then, is 100% going to win the race and then, falls asleep and then the tortoise is just chipping away and then wins.
Well, I think this ties into what I said in the last episode about sustainability.
Yes.
Sustainability is the pillar of whatever your process is. Right. So when you're thinking about your process, whether it be 3 blocks, you want to do 2 blocks, you want to do 4 blocks, you want to do reviews after games, in between games, before blocks, whatever, any of them work. It's whatever is the most sustainable for you. So if you can stick with whatever that is for an extended period of time, that's the process you should do, period. Right? There's no point pushing really hard and doing 3 blocks. You do that for 2 weeks and you're burnt out and then you have to take 2 weeks off.
Right,
because League is a game that rewards consistency.
Yes.
So that's kind of like what I take from that personally.
Our next rule, Curtis, it's called the rule of thirds.
Okay.
And this is another one from an Olympic coach. And the rule basically states is that 33% of the time you should feel pretty good. 33% of the time, you should just feel okay. And then 33% of the time, you're going to feel really bad. And he applied this principle to anyone that was doing something incredibly difficult, for example, trying to get an Olympic medal or whatever. And this is what he would talk to his athletes about because, people would have really bad days where they look like they're the worst on planet Earth. And then they have the high highs and low lows. And I think that's a really cool philosophy just to have in life in general is that I love it that it's just like 30%, 33%, a third of the time, this is the greatest, and let's relate it to League of Legends. This is the best game ever. Awesome. The other third of the time is like, it's just okay. You're just going through the motions. It's just like, okay, you don't feel amazing. You don't feel really bad. And then the next third is it's just going to suck. And it's really important. I always emphasize this with my coaching students because, you know, people always expect, again, when they join our programs, it's just this linear. It's like, we all go up, we get knowledge and we just keep applying it. It's like, it's going to suck. And and the other thing that he talks about is that if the ratio is off too much on, like, let's say it's feeling too good, or that means you're not pushing yourself hard enough, or it's sucking all the time, then you're probably really you need to really change your approach. So, you know, that's what you're aiming for, that ratio. And if it's too much index on either end, that means that you need to really assess what's going on.
What's your ratio? What was your ratio like for this season?
I think it's literally a third. The thing that people could get tricked by this, because I was thinking about this as well, we overemphasize the negative times more. And that's why, you know, people think league is a really bad game, or people think people not to play, but everyone forgets about the third of the time they're having lots of fun. But the third of the time where it's bad, you could think like, I'm just terrible, I'm really bad. But it always, every time I'm in that mindset, that state, I always manage to get out of it, which is really interesting. You know, I mean, obviously because I never actually quit, right? But I was thinking back, it's like that ratio feels fun. The okay period is pretty spot on, dude. Like, how many months is it? You just going, you know, just like, oh, okay.
Mine's different.
What do you think yours is?
I think mine's like...
Yours would be okay more.
Mine's like 10. Mine's like 10, 80, 10. It's like 10% bad, 80% normal, 10% great. That's really, I feel like that's what it is for me. It's very like weighted as average for the majority of my season. Maybe that's just the way I navigate my play. I kind of navigate my solo queue journey. For me, it feels really average for most of it. And then I have like a little severe down thing, and then I have a very severe up thing.
Don't you think that goes back to our last episode talking about the Andrew Huberman, how you could hack your dopamine to be, you know, rewarding through the process? Because when I hear about okay all the time, that means that you're not thinking about results at all.
Yeah, I'm just kind of slowly chipping away. Yeah. But I feel like for me, sustainability is so important.
That's where the okay. So the okay period is so big for you. That's why, because you're really focused on sustainability.
I'm really thinking like I cannot afford, because we got to play season in, season out. Like you both of you, Charlie and you, you guys are very like, I feel like streaky. Like, just the vibe I get from both of you. You go through an intense period of like, I'm the best. And then you'll go through this huge, like,
the third
slump.
Rule that resonated with you, Charlie, you think that's accurate for you?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, there you go.
No, I'm a 50-50.
You're 50-50.
There's
no middle ground. That's the way I interpret your journey as well. Yeah. But yeah, I think for both of you, I just think of you more as like really up and then really low. Like, I mean, obviously there's middle ground, but for the majority of the time, that's what I perceive you guys as. Whereas, because I think that's the way you guys structure your days as well, and your games. Like, you guys go hard for like a really certain period of time and then kind of like chill. But I feel like for me, I'm more like just plodding along, and I'm and you have like really high highs. Like, you'll climb really fast, really high, but then like you'll go down.
By the third is big, yeah.
Yeah, like I feel like, yeah, mine's more like 80, 10, 10. Like,
is that because you're not pushing for anything though? You're not trying to get rank 1?
Yeah, I'd say I'm more trying to do it in a very sustainable way. Like, I would say for me, yeah, I'm not really trying to push all the time, because I'm so, like, I'm very occupied with a lot of things, and I'm still trying, of course, but I can't give solo queue my all, you know.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So maybe that's the difference, Charlie, is that with us, we're really trying to get a specific rank, but Curtis has just been more sustainable.
More like, I'm trying to maintain, like, I was really trying to get like top 10 at some point.
Yeah.
And then I realized.
So then maybe that third rule would apply more. We feel that
if I was like really pushing, maybe, yeah.
So that's because that's what he says. Like, this is for people that are going for Olympic medals and like,
right.
You know.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, for at least for me, the way I structured my year, I actually felt like for me, I was going to push, and then like I realized this is not, I can't, like, I got other things to do, and I had to like tame my expectations, and then kind of just plot along. And I'm like, I kind of want to aim for like 800-ish LP, like top 20-ish. And that's what I was aiming for. And then, yeah. So that was more boring.
Yep. Cool. That's all I had for that one, Curtis.
It does remind me. So while we're on the topic of skill, so this is, we're kind of talking about journeys and we're talking about skill acquisition. I got linked a very, very interesting, there's actually a video from like a guy who teaches people how to work in teams more effectively in regards to coding and programming. So with companies, you go into a company and like how to getting people to work better inside the company, right? And the way he started this talk was he went into talking about how learning actually works. And there's actually a lot of models, a lot of different models to describe how learning works. One we've actually mentioned on the podcast before is the unconscious competence. Remember that one where you start as consciously incompetent and you work your way through to the point where you're unconsciously competent, right? Yep. That's an example of a model of learning, right? There's many of them. And one that I want to talk about today is called the dreyfus model of skill acquisition. And the way this was actually, he tells the background of this, of the way this was discovered. It was like these two people and they were like had very different approaches to learning. They come from two very different backgrounds, actually brothers, but they specialized into, one was like more into arts, one was more into like computers. And they said, okay, they wanted to create something that could learn chess, not play chess, but learn chess, like learn the rules of chess. And anyway, they went into but like, okay, before we code this thing, we need to understand how learning actually works. So they went down and spent this massive amount of years.
Break down the pros, like the way humans learn.
Yeah, the way humans learn. Because they're like, because this was actually, I believe, in the 70s. Yeah. This was in the 70s. And they were trying to figure out how learning fundamentally works. So they tried to like look at learning. They studied as much as they could from many different domains. And so anyway, they studied a lot of chess grandmasters eventually and compared how like chess grandmasters learned and how their brains work comparatively to people that were beginners at chess. Anyway, long story short, they came up with this model. And so there's 5 tiers. And I feel like this, for me, I resonated more with this model of learning than the unconsciously competent one. So I'm going to go through the 5 tiers here. You start out as a novice, right? And all you're doing is you basically follow structured rules. So the example he used was, let's say you're playing tennis for the first time. The guy's just going to say, pick up the stick and hit the ball over the net. So you don't really know why you're not really worrying about anything, mate, like any small detail. You just grab the stick, get the ball over the net, like hit it. You're going to miss it a few times. Sometimes like, every now and then it might go over. I'm like, oh, okay, I see that. And all you're doing is you're just following basic rules, okay? You're not thinking too much. You're not trying to understand really why it works. You're just following the rules blindly, right? And I'm actually going to talk about this in reference to the Yone learning journey because I'm actually going to talk about this in my Yone guide. So basically, this is what I would say to someone in league, right? A rule might be, try to use your E with Q3. Just hold the wave on your side for long trades. Play off your key spikes, berserker grease, balk, blah, blah, blah. So these are just rules. Even if you don't understand why, just follow the goddamn rules.
This is at the novice stage.
Yes, you're at the very beginner. Yep. And that's the best way to start. Just follow baseline. This is what we talk about reference points.
Yep.
And why champ guides are actually so effective because that's why your OLAF guide was so effective for a lot of people because you gave a set of rules that they could follow. And it's like, tick these boxes, boom, boom, boom. It gets you at a good baseline, right? That if you keep doing that leads you to number 2, an advanced beginner. And this is where the calibration phase comes in. This is where you're trying to test the rules a little bit. What happens if I don't do this rule? Like what happens if I don't use my E with the Q3? What happens when I shove the wave? What happens when I skip camps on Olaf? What happens when I don't do what Nathan says here? And what you're trying to do here, and this actually ties in beautifully with my what I've realized intuitively how I learn champions and how I've been teaching people. I talk about the idea of oscillating between playing really fast and really slow. So first you've got the structured rules, you've got the clear reference points. Now, be a bit of a rebel. Try something different. Don't do what I say.
This is the limit test phase or the experimentation or, play like a psychopath.
Yes. Heavy trade, not on berserker grease. Heavy trade pre-first base. Play a heavy trade before balk.
Take that 2v3 skill, like you're at a numbers disadvantage skirmish.
These are things. So, and then you're obviously going to fail.
Fight without your ult.
Yes, fight without your ult. So you don't hold the wave on your side. All these things, right? So what you're trying to do is you're testing the rules. You're like, oh, okay, now I kind of understand why those rules. You're getting more of an understanding of why the rules are there in the first place. You're like, okay, interesting. I can see why Curtis now says hold the wave on your side. I now kind of know why he says play off the berserker grease spike. Why blah 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 blah, and why people don't maybe don't skip the camps on these champs. Boom, 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 right?
Even though you're playing a full clear champ, skip the camps, see how it goes to gank a low HP lane.
That's right. So that you're in the very hardcore calibration phase. This leads you into number 3, the competent phase. So this is where, you're quite confident being able to apply the rules. Like if I told you, okay, hold the wave, play off your spikes, boom, 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 you'd be able to do it pretty reliably now. And you've kind of built a little bit of an understanding of why those rules exist, how they play out. So at this point, for example, you would know how to hold waves, why? You would know the importance of playing off key spikes, why? And you would know how to stay alive as Yone in the laning phase, get good resets, blah, 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 blah. And this is where most people stop. So this is what he says. This is where most people stop in their learning journey. So most people who get to an average level at a given skill, whether it doesn't, not just league, but in anything, this is where most people kind of give up. Because to go to the next level, this is where you got to really dedicate time. So if you want to, pursue mastery or get to the next level, this is where you really got to sit down and be like, okay, I know how to do the basics now. I know how to get decent, basic, good results. And this equivalent, I don't know what rank this might be. Maybe it's Plat 2. I don't know. Somewhere in that ballpark figure, right?
If you're going to say percentages there, like, how we say, now we're getting into the 1%ers, you think the novice level, that's like the first 70, 60% of learning a skill?
Yeah, I don't really know the percentages here. I haven't really thought about percentages. All I know is that by the time you've got to the third stage, the competent stage, or you've just got basic champ mastery. You've got pretty solid champ mastery. You have pretty good champ on basic identity understanding. You've got some okay muscle memory, right? Now, if you're now wanting to push, and this is where you're like, okay, I understand now all this stuff. I can execute on this stuff reliably. You keep going. You lead to the 4th stage, which is proficient. And this is where you're starting to really internalize the rules. This is where solutions are slowly appearing before your eyes without even really have to think about it. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's where I would go in with my R. That's where, but you're still not fully intuitive yet. You still are defaulting to the rules and you're still kind of thinking this like rule-centric way. And sometimes you'll default back to thinking in this logical way and using rules. Like, remember what Nathan said about blah, blah, blah. Remember what Curtis said about this. You're still thinking too much. You're not fully developing that muscle memory. So what I said here is that now you're starting to really experiment as well with getting different ideas. You're starting to do your own research. You're starting to see how other people play Yone. You're starting to really think, okay, how should I be thinking about Yone? But you haven't you're not the champion yet. You haven't become the champion yet. You're still thinking when you need to be feeling. You keep doing this, you keep analyzing situations, going a bit deeper, keep building that muscle memory. You get to the top, which is expert, and now you're no longer thinking in terms of rules. Everything appears before you. Everything's fluid.
Everything's adaptation.
Everything's adaptation.
Yeah.
You don't think in rules anymore. I am the champion. I am Rek'Sai in your case. I don't think of, I have to do this, blah, blah, blah. It's just like, that is me. I am Rek'Sai. Yeah. You are one with the champion. Every decision you make is pure free flow, intuition.
And anticipation. And seeing, like, let's say, I always talk about, especially with my Diamond Master tier clients moving into the Grandmaster Challenger bracket, there's a feel of game pace that I can't even describe, but it's just, once you're in it and you practice a lot, like I always say, people say like, oh, I can get overwhelmed and stuff, like I'm just getting outclassed. I'm like, just relax, all good. You'll get into that game pace the more you play.
That's right.
That's where you need to get to that level.
So they've probably got to that 4th level. They haven't got to that 5th level yet. And that's where you need to play hundreds of games.
You do need a lot of games
of your champion to get to that level. That's where you really become the champion. And so that's the final level there. And there was 3 little kind of like arrows here on this diagram. I'll see if I can send this to Charlie to put this graphic on. But basically, the higher you go up, the less you think in terms of rules, right? The higher you go up the chain, the higher you go up as well, you know exactly where to direct your attention. So they actually proved this with science, and this is why this is such a great model. What they did is they put they actually scanned the brain of people who play chess, and at different levels. So what they did is they scanned the brain of a grandmaster, an expert, and then they scanned the brain of someone that was at like kind of that middle ground, so competent, right? The middle ground where they've just internalized the rules essentially. And what they found, they showed them a chessboard. And what the grandmaster was able to do, they knew exactly where to direct their attention on the chessboard, and
they knew what was most important that moment.
Yes, they knew exactly. Whereas we
say that in our reviews all the time, don't we? That's a huge thing. It's like, this is all the information, and then let's say our clients will be like, I was thinking about this and this. I'm like, You don't really need to think about
Yes.
that. This is what you
You
need
know
to think
where-
about. This is the most important thing right
That's
now.
right.
Like the most obvious example is, okay, let's say there's 3 lanes in the game and there's a jungler, but I've got a winning Caitlyn Karma, super poke. Nothing else really matters. You got to direct your attention to what is going on with that lane right now. What is my win condition doing? What's the strongest member on map doing right now?
That's right.
That's where you need to put your focus, not on the other 3 members.
So
of the
you
team.
know how to prioritize your focus on the map. If you get sent a screenshot with the scoreboard and the map state, you would be thinking, you would weigh certain pieces of information subconsciously way higher
That's
than
right.
others. You don't have to waste time looking at every single little bit of information, whereas the person who's competent, who just knows the basic rules, has to look
They're
at
looking at
everything.
everything.
Because they're not relying on
They're
pattern
weighing it
recognition.
equally.
They're actually
Yeah.
using their logical brain to literally go like, okay, I need to look at everything, and then okay, now think about it, and then they will be able to like look at it. So what he said was that experts not only know where to direct their attention, but they'll do it faster. So they know where to look and register that information way faster. And the last thing was that when you're at the beginner, you don't know what you don't know, and then the high up you go, you're just, everything is just. He calls it metacognitive ability. So you're just thinking holistically. You're not really thinking it in specifics anymore. You're just kind of adapting. So yeah, that's the Dreyfus model.
That's a fantastic breakdown of the league. I reckon you could literally apply all of them into the skill brackets of the ranks.
That's right.
And this is the journey, and that just goes to again to prove the only way you're going to be able to assess all, like, obviously where we want to get to is that end point. I can quickly assess information and know where to direct my attention to. That just takes years, dude. It just
And our
does.
job as coaches is to speed up that learning process.
does.
Our job is to get you through this 5-step model as fast as we possibly can, and trying to get you to an expert in the most efficient way. That's literally all we're there to do as coaches. By good quality reviews, coming to sessions, teaching you guys how to review.
Not
understand the-
sabotaging a huge part of your journey, so then you're going maybe backwards
That's
and
right.
forwards. in
knowing
there.
where to direct your attention, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, that's the Dreyfus model. So if anyone's interested, Dreyfus, spelled Dreyfus. Very, very interesting. If you kind of wanted to nerd out on the whole skill acquisition path.
Yeah, it's interesting. So that's a study based on chess, isn't it? And the learning vehicle for chess, where again it's an individual based game, and it's very easy to see the skill, obviously, because it's just 1v1. And your MMR, your rating, I mean, we'd say as well, League of Legends, it does correlate to your skill level as well compared to your peers. But, because, going back to a lot of our job, Curtis, is just making sure people aren't sabotaging their learning process, because people's learning process in League gets blocked by all the narratives, and because it's a game, and because it should be easy, and because people are talented or not. So, it's that extra element of League is fascinating.
That's what makes it hard.
That's
right?
what makes it
That's
so
right.
hard, right?
Yeah.
Just the mental
That's
blocks,
why.
the
That's even
teammates.
why things like poker are so difficult. Poker is very difficult because of the mental taxing of losing money and
all those things outside of it.
all the
isn't it?
outside of things. That's right.
But with chess, you can just focus. I mean, obviously, there's going to be mental blocks as well. Let's say there's a mental block against the Sicilian or whatever.
There's certain strategies or whatever it might be, or certain players, especially when you get higher rated. Or
But there's just way less of that though. Still,
it's more of a solved kind of game comparatively to League.
There's
I would
just
say
so many distractions in League.
still
It's
not solved, but
unbelievable.
more solved. Yeah, here and there. Because it's been around for way longer, so people have a
right.
structured way to learn chess. That's what we're trying to figure out, right?
I mean, my goal and the goal of this podcast is that we can get to a point in League where people just understand why their teammates are behaving this way, so then you just cut all that out, then you're not like focusing on then understanding that your teammates aren't really that relevant to your skill level at all. You got to adapt to the situation. These are such important
But these
things. we need
things
to
start
ingrain.
way earlier, Nathan. Hence why I'm going to do this. I've already got it all written out, ready to go. I'm going to work with Charlie on this one as well. It's a video for beginners of League.
So yours, it is really important to start early.
So
yeah.
my goal with this video, it's literally, I even was working on it yesterday while I was in an hour-long queue. And so it's basically for beginners, people who've just starting in League, what your journey is going to look like.
This is
where
what
to
you need to be
direct your
aware
attention.
of.
And I literally have a section at the end saying bad pieces of advice, and then the no bullshit answer instead. Right? And I've actually got a section like that. This video, even though it's not really related to my channel, I feel like I'm obligated to do it. There's as a time capsule. Just put it out there. People can link it to people if they do play the game, because that's where it starts. If you can go in early, if you're starting League and watch this video that I'm going to put out, at the start of your journey, you are going to have such an easier climb.
Because you just dodge with all the narratives that you can see pop up. You're like, oh, that video mentioned, like, that's so obvious. Curtis mentioned that, you know, before. It's like, oh, my team, I'm starting to blame my teammates. Oh, well, that makes sense.
You don't have to dig the hole, right? Because we dig ourselves a massive hole.
Yeah. We dig the hole with narratives, but we also fortify it and stuff, and just you know, we bunker in for the winter, you know, like there's some crazy narratives digged into. It takes years to break sometimes.
I want to switch it up and talk about general comments. So we spoke about a bit at the gym today about this, and I wasn't planning on talking about it, but I think it's a good topic. I've noticed. So one of the trends we notice in our coaching, Nathan, is that people are very good at overcomplicating the game, and you can go down a very rough rabbit hole if you get in the habit of overcomplicating things. And one of the ways you can overcomplicate the game is by thinking in general terms. We have a tendency, you know, I think we've spoken about this before, is that we like to make sense of things, right? We like to think, okay, there's one learning I get from this game. I can apply this to many, many, many games. And to be fair, there are some what we call reference points, things that you can apply to many games, but that only gets you so far.
And principles as well. Let's say, for example, the Caitlyn Karma lane, that's like a really high pressure lane that generally is a good idea to play around as a jungler.
But the deeper the game goes in, the less general you can think, right? Would you agree with that? Kind of like if you're first clear on Olaf,
yep.
You can I'm not saying you're going to be able to exactly replicate the early game, but you have a pretty solid game plan most of the time.
Yep. So then I have a perfect example here of a game that I played yesterday where I went from that general statement. So I was playing against a Caitlyn Karma lane, right? Mm-hmm. I'm playing Xin Zhao. I know that they have a short window where they're actually very vulnerable on that whole level 2, you know, whoever gets level 2 first in that bot lane. So very specifically, and this is all time and everything, I don't have time to do 3 camps. I need to do red Krugs, then gank. I don't do red Krugs Raptors. And then that limited the pressure from the Caitlyn Karma. And then suddenly now, like, I have a huge win condition, the enemy team's useless, and I win the game. That's, again, going from general to specific. It's like I specifically have to do these camps at this specific time, because if I apply that general rule, if I do red Krugs Raptors, I've lost my window to pressure that lane, and if I go bot, I lose the game.
Great example. So yeah, and I've noticed this more so with mid-game macro. People want a cookie-cutter solution to mid-game macro. They want to know, Curtis, what do I do in every situation or most situations with this champion? And I found that, you know, I used to want to kind of please the client by telling them, okay, most of the time you're going to do this. And what I've realized over time, that sometimes I feel like that does more harm than good. And what I've realized is that you're better off just getting very specific. And it's sometimes not what they're looking for. No. The client's looking for...
That's why you feel obligated to, like, they're asking for, it's like, here it is. But deep down, you know, it's like, well, like, specifically, like, it's not going to apply all the time. You could get confused with this.
Hence why a lot of the time I've been ending my sessions by going on a spiel about, this is how you would review these situations in the future.
Yes.
So when I'm not here, this is how you would break this one down. And this is the process you follow. Important. Hence why I wrote that reviewing article. And so an example of this, right? I was coaching a Yasuo player, and, you know, it was getting into some mid-game situations. And he's like, well, his mid-game was atrocious. It was some very poor quality decisions, you know, opting in for team fights with no ultimate 3k gold. Jungle on the other side of the map trying to opt in for a fight.
Those are quick, easy reviews.
Yes, man. very obvious things, right? And he's like confused about his mid game, right? Yeah. I said, okay, there is no right, like so this past 3 things we've broken down, they're all case by case basis. One of them was you made a play without your ult. One of them was that you were heavy trading on the opposite side of the map, and one of them it was something like you were playing away from your teammate's location, or you went into early, or you had to give the dragon and split push topside or something.
So we got mid-game up here, and then you just come up right now with 3 different things in that umbrella, which could be mid-game problems.
That's right. And they might not happen in other situations. And there might be situations where you actually have to group instead of split push, right? And so my point being here is that, you know, I want you guys to be okay with coming out of review and thinking, okay, if I'm in a similar situation to this next time, this is, kind of how I should be thinking about it. But that might not happen for another 30 games. Like, you just need to understand that this is what I talk about in my intuition video on YouTube. The more situations you see, the patterns will slowly form. Your intuition and your brain is very powerful at pattern recognition. So even though you may not feel that these are useful reviews, I guarantee you they are. So if you can go into your mid game and you pick 2 or 3 moments to break down, boom, boom, boom. Okay, should have done that, should have done that, should have done that. Yes, they might be all specific to that situation. I guarantee you're still getting learning subconsciously that you can apply to other situations, but it just may not be as neat and tidy as you think it is. So yes, I think that my main point I'm trying to make here is that if you try to generalize things too much and come up with these massive cookie cutter solutions, you're often going to just overcomplicate your journey because sometimes they just don't exist. And you're better off just having one specific takeaway. Into this champion, I shouldn't do this. I need to kite this champion out in this situation. Sometimes that's the finding, and it's not sexy.
When you were saying humans are good at the pattern recognition, you remember because this is the Nathan Mott special. I love going thinking back into our survival days. Right. This is the story that I came with my head, Curtis. Okay. The pattern recognition.
Yep.
My name's Bob. I'm going down for my, my daily hunting because I got to feed my village. Okay. Billy goes into this place. He goes hunt in a different location, but he doesn't come back. He gets eaten by lions or whatever like that, right?
Oh, no.
And then I'm like, okay, I don't really take much note of it. It's like could just be a one-off. And then next day, David goes, and he also doesn't come back.
Oh no! What a shame.
What's going on now? The next day. You got Barry.
Not Barry.
He's about to go to that place, but you're like, that's not a good idea. Like the patterns I've got here, what was their names again? Billy, Barry.
David and Dave.
They didn't go there, so it's probably you should come to my area because I've been successful at that.
Yeah.
You see that? That was the first story that went to my head.
Thank God it wasn't Jim Bob.
Thank God, yeah.
If Jim Bob gone, we were done.
No, Jim Bob's a modern day individual in the BBC lore.
Then.
Yeah,
okay.
Jim Bob is the
He's new. He's the new age.
He was born in 2000.
He's a Zoomer.
Yeah. I have another example, Curtis.
Okay.
For Adam came to me with a review this morning. Talking about, again, same thing, mid-game, or specifically his question was, I don't know how to create pressure points, right? I don't know how to play with pressure.
It's a very general thing.
And the VOD that he brings me here, okay?
Here we go.
I literally told him, this is the worst example you could be asking this question, right? He's got a Xerath and like a Caitlyn and a Varus, right? Against a Blitzcrank, right?
Yeah.
So like, you almost can never pressure in that situation. The only form of pressure is hopefully Xerath and Varus hit a couple of their poke abilities.
Yeah.
That's the worst example possible, but he's looking for that answer. I thought that was so funny because you couldn't ask for a worse VOD ever because you can actually, the enemy teams always has this pressure on you because Blitzcrank just has to hit one hook in a duration of 20 minutes and you instantly have lost all pressure on the map.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. You get some very interesting views of the game, that's for sure. I'm going to do a bit of a roast for a second. We got an interesting client named Daniel Marvin. I'll call him Marvin. He has kind of two. I don't know, thought he has two weird names. His name's Marvin or Daniel. I don't know. Marvin. Anyway, he's also a Yasuo player. And he's going... so me and Peter, another guy, were talking about how you get... macro, you actually get capped. Micro only takes you so far, right? So this is the guy's the definition of mechanics max, right? So
and that's what attracted him to Yasuo, clearly.
Yes, clearly that's his personality, and he's very good mechanically. He can get leads basically every game just through good laning and good trading and good mechanics. And the quality of the macro decisions, it's very concerning. Like you can tell that this is like, no thought being laid down in terms of like what he should be doing and why, right? And to the point where it's kind of like he's really far ahead, and then he'll just go for super coin flip risky plays and invades where he's nowhere near his team and give shutdowns, or randomly start dragon with no prio bot as it, like it's just random decisions, right? And to the point where like he's struggling with the idea that micro can't carry him anymore, and he's finally having to like get into the details and learn how to review deaths. And the thing, and I feel like, you know, that meme where it's kind of like, you know, in SpongeBob where it's like, you know, 50 days later and then 100 days later or 200 days later. It feels like, you know, for me, it's going to be a long year of telling the same message. One death completely changes the game. And I feel like I'm a broken record here, because I will say it again and again and again, but until you feel what it's like to play conservatively and not die, it won't actually register. But the problem is he can't do that, because he says, when I think when I'm trying to actively like not die, I don't perform better. I lose my micro ability. So now he's struggling with the idea. It's like, do I play worse mechanically and overwhelm my mental stack and not die? Or do I continue to play well mechanically and win via mechanics? He can't wrestle with the idea that he's going to have to overwhelm his mental stack a little bit to actually take a step back and think and not die, not go in or calibrate in the lull states, because he's worried that's going to take a toll on his micro.
And what's been successful for him the most? Winning games through micro.
And this is why I said, because yes, he's been rewarded.
That's right.
In the past by trading 1-for-1 or whatever.
And that's very difficult. Once that stops working,
yes,
that's so difficult to break that rhythm.
Yes, and you know what everyone's trying to do? Everyone's trying to get in this Discord call and convince him, trust me, Marvin, you got to just play conservative, just don't die.
Hard.
Like these are situations where you made bad decisions. If you don't do this, you win the game. But he can't understand it. It won't, because he doesn't have a feeling for what it's like to not die, right? And you know the conclusion that I came to towards the end, I said, you cannot convince someone to change that isn't ready to change. So what I've realized with certain clients, it's like when they're ready, they will come.
And typically, unfortunately, when they're ready is when they've tried it their way, zero results. They're at broken rock bottom.
Yes,
that's when they will be finally ready to change. That's just unfortunately the way human nature is.
Yes, that's unfortunate. The way it is for some people. Some people that are closed-minded, or they've got really particular ways of viewing the game that
they're in the hole and they're fortified.
Yeah, they fortified it. We can't get in. No. He's got to want to come out to us.
He's going to come out. That's right.
You know, he's got to want to come out to us. We can't go in there and dig. It's like an impenetrable fortress in there. So what I said is, ultimately, what I think he needs to do. And this is the kind of the sad reality. I said he's got to do this, fail, like get like absolutely mental boom explode, go from D2 to P4, and then we just rebuild.
That's right.
Like that's what I think we could probably do, you know? And then that way we can 100% know that, you know, it'll work, because he'll be desperate. Like he'll be desperate to change.
Just tell me anything. I don't even know if it'll work. Just tell me anything. I'll just follow it.
Yes, that's what I'm waiting for, because I've had very little success trying to convince people to change the way they view the game until they hit rock bottom. Unfortunately.
A lot of the people who came through...
It's not everyone though, but this is a lot of people.
It is. And again, the longer that people have played the game, we typically find it harder.
And if they've had success doing that in the past.
Yes.
But that's the crazy thing, because it works till a certain point. And you just got to know what that point is.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing. A lot of the way people find this podcast is attracted to the podcast is that they're trying to find new information about how to improve.
Yes.
Then they're seeking it, but they've come from failed season. How many times
I've done the spam games, no reviews, and I've been diamond now for 3-4 seasons.
Now let's try Curtis and Nathan.
They're the best clients.
Yeah, they are. They are clients, because they're really open to it.
There's actually two best clients. The one that are fresh.
Yep.
And like really like curious and then have no ego. And then the ones that have broken down because they've tried, they've done their way, hasn't worked. They're hit rock bottom and they go, please, Curtis, give me the answer. And then, you know, smooth sailing.
That's right.
Very interesting.
I mean, the 3-block system, as basic as that is, that has helped so many people, dude. It's unbelievable.
It's almost comedic as well, like to the point where like, it's like if you get a client, new client comes into the Salter, they're like, do you 3-block or do you review? No? Okay. You already know that like you're just missing. I mean, nothing I say matters until you do that.
Yes.
You know, really in a way.
Yep.
Like do that for a bit and then come back to me and then we can make some progress. Yeah. Very interesting.
Are we ready for some mailbag, Curtis?
Do it.
Away we go.
song.
Alrighty then. Our first question is from Zack. The title of this email is Diamond After 4 Long Years of Failure. Hello, Nathan and Coach Curtis. Zack, and I was really hoping to share my findings for hitting Diamond. First major thing was treating my team like a puzzle. Instead of getting frustrated with what a player was doing, I shifted my attention on what the win condition was and how I could adjust to what I was doing. Being curious on how I could win impossible games was what won me so many games I would have FF'd normally, given up. Second was a heavy emphasis on champ mastery. I got obsessed with perfecting Bard to the point I was spending time in practice tool anytime I missed an ability. The third major thing was having a review process. I went through a phase of where I reviewed everything, even reviewing remake games. I managed to gain something. Focusing on small details in these reviews allowed me to get better. I created the idea in my head that mistakes happen no matter what the result was, so a perfect game is pretty much impossible. Lastly is playing for the process, not the results. I spent around 1 year stuck, all because I let myself believe that I was not good enough or my team was just holding me back. The moment I stopped focusing on results and focusing on structuring my games, plus having fun, I grew more in a few months than an entire year. There are so many more things that I could say, but you get the point. The process works. I wanted to shout out Coach Cupcake for the reviews that really shaped my identity, and thank you guys for making the journey possible. This podcast has really made my view of the game different, and unlike most of the community, you guys shed the positivity that most players are missing. Let's keep grinding.
Awesome stuff.
So nice, simple email, just
Beautiful.
sharing the
Really awesome.
the BBC mantras, simple, basic things.
Another example of it working.
That's right.
Getting results. Shout out Coach Cupcake.
Obviously
the
doing
Bard Master.
good work over there with his...
By the way, bit of a tangent reminds me of this. I had a conversation. There's Pearl. She is a Cassiopeia player in the MLA, and she kind of is obsessed with champions that really keep you occupied and on your toes. You know, like champions that are very finicky about micro clicking and hitting skill shots. You know, Cassio is that very mechanical intensive champion. And you're always doing things, whether it's like casting E to last hit or trying to fish for Qs or whatever it might be, and you're moving around.
So they'll be more like low range champions.
Yeah, low range, like Rise and things like that, right? And anyway, she wanted to diversify her pool, so she added in Lux. And one of the mental blocks she was wrestling with was, what do I do when I can't do anything? Because like with Cassio, you're kind of always doing things. Yeah. Whereas Lux, you're kind of just like sometimes clearing the way, keeping your distance with
throw your E out. And then it's like, oh, what do I do now?
Yeah, and she was really struggling with not kind of being mentally occupied in this sense. And as a result of that, she started to develop a bit of like a blasé mentality. Like, you know, I'm just going through the motions in a way. And I actually use the example of Cupcake and how Cupcake is the master of small wins. And I remember like because I didn't really know much about Andy. His name's Andy, obviously, when he first joined Direwolf. So we got him in 2018 as our support
from Legacy.
And I didn't really know anything about the way he thought about the game and how he played lane. And I remember watching some of his first few games, and he got obsessed with Tahm Kench and all this stuff. And my mindset on champs like Tahm Kench was always like, well, you're not a very mechanically intensive champion. You have no gap closer, really. I mean, you're just this big frog and big toad. But like the way he was thinking, he was like clicking really close to his character, trying to like chat out the enemy with like just threat, hitting every Q, trying to like perfectly space and overwhelm the enemy's mental stack, think about positioning in the lane, like vision control, small, very minimal details to juice the value out of the kit. And that always stuck with me and inspired me. It's like, no matter what your champion is, no matter how simple or how limited you are with your kit, there are always things you can do to get more value and do more with your kit. It's literally a mindset, and it is literally getting to the details, right? But it's actually a mindset more than anything. It's like, okay, how do I, if I was forced to juice the maximum value out of my kit, how would I do it? And that, you know, that's not just with your abilities, it's with like your posturing and your movement and your clicking and like you're using Fog of War and and finding every little window, not getting sloppy with ability usage. You could get sloppy and
I get sloppy with my Rek'Sai knock-up, which is one of the easiest things to hit. I'm close range.
Yeah.
I hit the knock-up. I miss that sometimes.
or like with the Lux shield, the W, you might get sloppy and only hit like the one side of it, but why don't you get both sides of
Yeah.
it? Get the double shield.
Love
Things
that.
like little small wins. Cupcake. And I said to Pearl, I said, that's the mentality you might want to start thinking about. If I had to juice the value out of my kit, how would I do it? What does that look like? Staying sharp mentally, thinking of all the small details. And so shout out Cupcake for that mentality. I didn't really know about that before him. And if you do play a mechanically simple champion, there are still ways. There's more you can do, I can guarantee you. So just a nice little tangent there.
All right, next one here is from Skarm. The title of this email is Having Fun. We've talked about this topic a lot on previous podcasts over the last couple of months. Hey guys, hope you guys are enjoying the preseason. I recently role swapped to jungle just because before preseason it was the lowest priority role and I thought that I hated it. And let me say, the reason I thought I hated it was because I was a scaling mage player. Taking early skirmishes wasn't for me. That was my narrative. Long story short, 3 camp into invade enemy red to kill the enemy jungle is probably the most fun I've had in League in a while. The mindset of waiting for me to come online versus taking control early has helped me to see the game in a new light, and I'm just having so much fun with Kindred and Wukong. And he said also Spotify Rap said you guys were in my top podcast for the year, and he's listened to 50,000 minutes of podcasts. So this guy's a veteran. And 5,000 of those was ours. So 10% of his total.
Okay, wow.
10% of his total podcast was
Great.
was us. Thanks for the content and your positive view on the game. Good luck in preseason. That's very interesting, right?
Yeah,
He's
you wouldn't
went
think
from
that.
one extreme to the other to freshen up his view of the game. And preseason is the time to do it as well. Like, this is awesome. Like, dabble in something. Maybe that is a message. Like, let's say if you feel like you're completely not one, maybe you enjoy it. Who knows?
You know, I would be very intrigued to know what the start of his journey looked like.
Okay.
Because, like, you know, I think there are some people when they play League, and this is what I recommend, I'm going to say in my video about beginners, you should play every role and, like, basically every style of champion.
When you begin. So then you know.
Play jungle, play top, play AD carry, play all of them, and even play assassins, play everything. Just so you get, like, a feel of everything. And then you decide what you want to go down. I wonder if he did that. Or I wonder if he just kind of picked scaling mages because I thought I'm a mage player and never... Like, because, you know, I actually didn't start with mages. I was like Gianna and Vayne and Hecarim and Yorick.
Everything.
And I played everything. And then finally I landed on like Xerath and Ziggs and stuff. That was like the end of my journey. Yeah. So I wonder what his start of his journey would look like.
You were like initially like a jungler, basically.
I was a
when you
jungler.
First tried in rank, you were a jungler.
Yeah, I got Diamond
with Hecarim.
1 with Hecarim.
Yeah.
I was a Hecarim jungler.
Crazy.
Jungle player.
In NA.
I Diamond 1 in NA in season 2? No, season 3, sorry.
Yeah.
Season 3.
That was just before the O service came out.
That's right. And I was having a blast, dude, with Hecarim. And then I played Yorick top.
And then
Kale. I was playing a lot of random
And then
shit.
you moved to the Zig Xerath. Again,
Yeah.
only a year or two later.
Yeah.
You completely switched.
Yeah, I think it was the next season I started to dabble in mages and stuff like that. I think I fell in love with Nidalee mid and Cassio and stuff like that. Yeah. So, you know, again, that's for people out there, right, who haven't tried all this stuff, maybe it is a good opportunity to get out of your comfort zone and see if this is what you truly like about the game, if you haven't tried anything. Very interesting. But I would say that's quite rare. I've never heard of that before, actually.
Yeah.
I think that's the first time I've ever heard of that.
Me too. All right, moving on here. This next one is from Niall.
Niall?
No, not the Niall. It's spelt differently.
Okay.
Hello, Nathan and Curtis. Okay, my name is Z50, and I'm a Plat EU West support main. His name's Z50, but he's plays support. He's playing Z support. Here we go. On one of your recent podcasts, you had said the mailbag had dried up, so I'll write in, share my story. I'm a long-time listener of the podcast, listen to every episode. I'm a student of Coach Cupcakes. We got Coach.
Great.
This is the Coach Cupcake episode today.
But an army.
I subscribe and echo everything you guys preach to the point where I piss my other friends off by repeating phrases and lessons from the podcast constantly. I tell them that they need to get into the details to review and not to disrespect the game.
Shut up, Niall.
Yeah.
I get it. I need to get into the details. I don't want a 3-block. Leave me alone.
My friend, we will call him Sia, is a plat Z1 trick. He never reviews and has always disrespected the game. As a result, he's been platinum since Season 6, and I often catch him playing on his Smurf instead of his main to make himself feel good and inflate his Z ego, killing poor low elo players. Sia does not believe in the 3-block review process, unfortunately, and is sick of me sending him WhatsApp stickers of Nathan wearing the get into the detail shirt. We got to put the sticker up. This is the sticker. He sends the sticker to me.
That's awesome. That's hilarious.
Yeah, we got to put it up on the podcast, Charles. I don't know if the camera can see it, but
Absolutely not.
again, he sends that sticker. It's in a WhatsApp message. He sends the sticker,
Great.
and he's sick of it. All right. So in an attempt to convert him, we made a friendly bet this solo queue rank season. Whoever finished higher at the end of the season got to choose a champion and role that the loser had to play for 50 games. I couldn't lose. I had the BBC mantras and methods down. This friendly competition had us both churning out the games, pushing each other forward, and to be honest, I haven't had this much fun playing League in a while. Well, lads, on the last day of the season, it came down to 1 LP difference. So I queued up before the deadline and I lost. I now have to play Z Jungle for 50 games. I was the champion for the BBC 3-block review details process and I failed you guys. I've since started the Zungle games. I think that means Z Jungle. Yep. And I have learned a few things. It has given me empathy towards the jungle role, seeing it firsthand from their perspective, how pathing works in gank opportunities, low versus high impact ganks, objective control, etc. I feel already this experience has given me a rounded understanding of the game and will benefit me going into the next season. I was interested to hear your guys' thoughts on all this. Firstly, competing with friends to push yourself on, and also, do you reckon it is important for laners to try jungling to understand what your jungler wants to do and how you can work better with them? Thanks again, guys, for the excellent podcast. I promise I won't fail next year. Sia will be playing Yorick for his top 50 games in Season 14. And he attached his Spotify Wrapped, and he has 3,000 minutes listened to the BBC this
Love
year.
it. Again, this is the tortoise and the hare, what you're talking about, with Niall here. He may not get the results in the short term, but over time, with patience and having fun and enjoying the process, having a better relationship with the game, chances are you're gonna have more results.
That's right.
Just play the time game.
The time game, powerful game to play.
Is there anything that jumps out to you? Competition with friends?
I mean, yeah, I always think about, the reason that I really got into the game and started being really competitive was because you were high elo. I was like, I couldn't believe Curtis has been playing League of Legends. He's a Counter-Strike gamer. It's ridiculous that that anchored my level of my possibility, because I, thought Curtis wasn't good at these type of games, So yeah, I think it is awesome to have, like a competition or a bet going. I think that's really cool.
I think a lot of people, that's a very common thing, by the way. Like a lot of people join our programs because they want to be the best in their friendship group. And I think it's an interesting one. I think it can be a bit of a double-edged sword. I think for some people, they work well with the pressure and they like it. It's a bit of like friendly banter. For other people, they take it too far and they can't express their best self because they're trying to be better than someone else rather than just expressing who they are. So, be careful with it. It really depends on the personality, what I found.
Yeah. And also, like, with this competition and stuff like that, at the end of the day, you're not going to be, maybe you could do it as like a yearly thing. Maybe it is always a year. Maybe that's the thing. But, generally, people, let's say your friend who doesn't disrespect, like that person's probably going to quit, so you can't really rely on that in the long run. If you want to be like, you enjoy League of Legends as a hobby in the long run.
Well, if that guy does it for another year, that'd be awesome, right?
Yeah.
It'd be 2 years. That'd be awesome to see kind of how they go over 2 years.
Yes. Yeah, so right back to us.
The end of next year.
Or Z50. In terms of playing jungle to understand junglers more, I mean, it can help. I mean, I always say this for me. I haven't played top, mid, or AD carry I've never played those roles. And I I mean, maybe I'm doing it slower, but I'm understanding what they want by, observing in games, seeing what works, playing around win conditions, that sort of stuff. And, maybe I could learn more, but I really don't think it's necessary to play jungle to learn the role. Like, because you have your specific things as a mid laner that you only need to look for, versing junglers.
Look, I think if you just direct attention and really think about the jungler, you don't need to play it to understand what they're doing. Sure, it would help, but not everyone has the luxury to spend time playing another. It's a massive time investment. I mean, if you're talking maybe long term, maybe you could spend an off season doing it, but like, I don't think it's necessary. And I think as long as you are curious and you're like looking at it in the review, like, okay, if I was a jungler, why would I gank here? You can probably, reason it out and understand why you died to that gank and how the jungler would be thinking in that situation. As long as you kind of understand basic jungle stuff, right?
I mean, you said that a big learn objective that you've mentioned many times is revisiting the jungle tracking.
Yeah.
And, you're not playing jungle. You're only learning that through the mid lane lens.
Yep. Just looking at it, like if I were them, why would they gank me here based off what's happening with my trades and my waves? I will say this though. I've noticed a lot of people dying to ganks in the MLA more so than the past. That 3 camp loop through mid gank is very popular. And
especially now you Bradcock's Raptors, there's a lot. And
even with champs that don't even gank it normally. For example, like I reviewed a VOD this morning. It was a Ghost Rengar level 3 just ran just out of the bush and just killed this guy. Just chase him down.
I love it.
Run him with the bowler.
Yeah.
And just got him.
Bowl him down.
Yeah. And so you can, a lot of junglers, even that, I died to like level 3 Eve ganks all the time, actually, because they catch me off guard. I'm not expecting it. I think I got ganked recently. I was playing like a heavy trading Yone matchup, and I just wasn't expecting Evelyn to gank me at level 3. And the wave wasn't even in like a
gankable state.
Like in my mind, a gankable state. It was kind of like in neutral state. I'm like, there's no way he's going to be here. So I like
he'll prioritize his full clear over gank.
That's what I thought. But no, he just did the 3 camp. He actually started blue and 3 camp, like loot through. And I'm like, holy shit. And I just die. I'm like, oh, okay, fair enough. So yeah, I'm learning that the hard way. I'm having to calibrate because it's a lot more popular path at the moment.
You said that you learnt a lot from watching my Rek'Sai guide about jungle.
Yes, that Rek'Sai guide teaches you a lot of just jungle basics, ganking basics, I think. I think anyone who doesn't really know much about ganking and why they're dying to ganks, I think that is a great introduction. Just there's like that segment. It's like a specific segment, like where you go into like, I don't know what it's called. It's like... Yeah, the gank theory model, that segment, what's like that. And then Nathan goes through, I think, a lot of different paths. I think that's a really, really good introduction.
All right, our last one here is from Mechanicless, who's in the Mid Lane Academy.
Yep.
There's a bit of a different one. Peripheral question and thoughts. Morning, Charlie, Nathan, and Coach. In order of importance, of course. Fuck yeah. So I'm saying Charlie's the most important part of this podcast. My name is Cameron, but Curtis will recognize me as Mechanicless from the Mid Lane Academy. I have some food for thought for you, gentlemen. Have you guys ever considered looking into mice in regards to performance? I recently upgraded after watching this clip and thinking about discussions of mechanics and clicking in League. In this example, the creator is exclaiming that lighter mice are better and shows an example of him moving 2 different weighted mouse back and forth with pegs as fast as he can, as well as some other examples. This jogged my brain, and all I could think was the side-to-side motions we are often using in League. After this, I upgraded for the first time in many years to what I felt would be the lightest mouse for me, and am seeing incredible results in LoL dodge game and League as well. Curious to see your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't know enough about this to comment. Really, I've been a very basic peripheral type of guy. Yeah. I've kind of my entire life I got obsessed with the Razer Death Adder. That was my first proper gaming mouse that I fell in love with when I was playing Counter-Strike back in the day. I was like, you got to get the Death Adder. So I had the Death Adder. I bought the Death Adder multiple times. I remember going to CPL, this local computer store, buying it. I was so excited. Yeah. Had like the blue RGB. And then I bought that mouse for many years, and I've always tried to find a mouse that is like the same. So I use a HyperX mouse that is basically the exact same as like the Death Adder.
Yeah.
And it's actually pretty shit. Like the rubber falls off all the time, but it just feels, feels like the Death Adder. So that's what I'm used to. It has the 2 side buttons. That's all I like.
Yeah.
So for me, I've just grown up with that. So that's kind of what I use. But I'd be open to experimenting with differing mice. Obviously, I'm a bit scared. But I mean, it's not like I could try. I could buy it and try it. And then, like, it's not like I have to commit to it, you know? Why not? I'd be open to trying it.
Maybe that's the problem to my mechanics. Maybe because my mouse is too heavy.
That's it, Nathan. It's all the peripherals.
That's the peripherals.
It's all the peripherals.
It's definitely not my decision making or, you know, the basic mistakes that I'm making.
Something to a fresh mouse pad.
Fresh mouse pad. Okay, that's
Every
interesting.
few months, just get a new mouse.
You reckon?
I am actually big on keyboards, though. I do think that the what's it called? Like the
color.
The color is quite big.
I don't even know what I've got. I think I got brown.
You want to have
do
one
you
that
have?
is like easier to click. Like when it's too hard, I actually feel like I don't know what the colors like. I have red. I think red's like I believe I have red. I think red's a really good medium. It's like it's not too light and it's not too heavy. That's why I get red. But I do think that if you have one that's hard to click, the really heavy one, I do think you're at a disadvantage straight up, especially when you're doing fast combos. But so who knows? I'm happy to try it. Does he link it?
Yeah, he linked the clip.
Okay. So yeah, just send it. Maybe flick it to me after, and I can take a look.
Yeah, we can maybe revisit this, but
And then maybe if it's good, potential BBC partnership there.
yep. So yeah,
So you want to say the name, or do you want to link it? Like, how are people going to see this?
Yeah, I guess we'll put the link in the description.
Charlie,
I think we've got
Charles,
three things to do.
Charles got a lot.
So
to
you
do.
got to do this link. You got to do the
Not last week in the comments.
The-
excuse me.
yeah the
Yeah,
comments.
and then I came in clutch.
Call
I
out
put it in
Charlie.
there. And then the my one, the diagram of the
the diagram,
It's on the screen as well.
yep, this
and
is so much
also the
editing.
pop up of the sticker.
the sticker. Charles,
of
you got a lot of
the-
work
yeah.
to do.
What's the word?
So everyone in the comments, remember Charlie is responsible for all of this. If he doesn't do it, roast him in the comments as per usual.
All right, that's
it.
it for our episode today, everyone. Good work. Let's keep on using the preseason, December. Remember, in the comments on YouTube, post your Spotify Wrapped, how many minutes of the Broken by Concept podcast you listen to, even if it's 2 minutes, because you just, you don't care about
They might
this
use
podcast.
YouTube. They might use YouTube.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it could be 2 minutes. They might just use YouTube. All right, we'll see you guys next time.